That night I wrote in my diary what no one could ever know. The moment I became just another patient, and how a young nurse changed everything I believed about my own kingdom. But what happened in those hospital corridors would expose secrets that could destroy everything I've built. Dear Diary, I'm writing this with trembling hands at 3:47 a.m., still wearing the hospital bracelet they forgot to remove. The plastic cuts into my wrist, a sharp reminder that tonight, for the first time in 70 years, I wasn't the Queen. I was just Elizabeth Windsor, patient number 4751. And what I discovered about my own kingdom in those sterile corridors will haunt me forever. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. And the lie that started it all. The day began like any other. Morning briefings with the private secretary, reviewing correspondence, the usual ceremonial duties. But tucked between the official appointments was something personal. Something I'd hidden from my staff for weeks. Mrs. Henderson had written to me again about her dying husband. Her last letter was different. Desperate. Your Majesty, she'd written in shaky handwriting, I know you receive thousands of letters, but I had nowhere else to turn. My James has cancer. The doctors say 6 months, maybe less. We've been on NHS waiting lists for specialised treatment for 8 months now. We've sold everything. Our home, my mother's jewellery, even James's war medals, trying to pay for private care. But it's not enough. The letter had arrived 3 days ago, and I'd read it 17 times. She wasn't asking for money. She was asking for hope. Just to know that someone, somewhere, remembered that her son died for something that mattered. I made a decision that night that would change everything. I told my lady-in-waiting I had a headache. The kind of small deception that comes so naturally after decades of practice. Perhaps some early rest, Your Majesty, she suggested, concern creasing her features. Yes, I agreed, just a quiet evening with some papers. By 7:30 p.m., the official day was over. By 8 p.m., I was supposed to be reviewing state documents in my private study. Instead, I was walking through servants' corridors I'd explored as a child during the war, wearing clothes I'd borrowed from a housemaid's locker. Dark wool coat that smelled of lavender and loneliness. Sensible shoes that pinched my feet. A headscarf that belonged to someone else's grandmother. Someone who probably never worried about constitutional crises or trade agreements. Getting out was easier than you'd think. Palaces are designed to keep people out, not in. After 7 decades, I know every secret passage, every blind spot in the security cameras, every guard's rotation schedule. Have you ever felt so trapped that you'd risk everything just to breathe freely for 1 hour? The taxi driver was Pakistani, maybe in his 50s, with kind eyes and calloused hands that spoke of long shifts and hard work. He didn't look twice at me, just another elderly woman in the back seat. Visiting someone in hospital? He asked, adjusting his rearview mirror. Something like that, I replied, staring out at streets I'd never seen from ground level. Street lamps, illuminated scenes I'd only read about in briefings, chip shops with flickering neon signs, young mothers pushing prams past betting shops, teenagers gathered outside corner stores. This was my kingdom, but from a taxi window it looked like a foreign country. Been driving 30 years, the taxi driver continued, navigating through traffic with practiced ease. Hospital runs are the hardest part of the job. see so much pain, but also so much love. People who travel halfway across London just to hold someone's hand." His words hit me unexpectedly. When was the last time someone had travelled anywhere just to hold my hand? St. Mary's Hospital loomed ahead, a concrete and glass monument to good intentions and budget constraints. I'd cut ribbons at hospital openings, shaken hands with administrators in pristine conference rooms, smiled for photos in spotless wards prepared specially for royal visits. But I'd never just walked through the front door like everyone else. The automatic doors wheezed open with the tired sigh of overworked machinery. Inside, the emergency department was controlled chaos, a symphony of human suffering and professional competence. Elderly people slumped in wheelchairs, some dozing fitfully under harsh fluorescent lights. Babies crying in their mothers' arms, while toddlers played with broken toys from a cardboard box labelled donations. Teenagers clutching bloodied towels, their bravado cracking at the edges. The smell hit me first. Disinfectant trying and failing to mask the reality of human suffering. Underneath the chemical cleanliness lurked something deeper. Fear, hope, exhaustion, and that particular desperation that comes with being sick and scared in a place that feels more like a railway station than a place of healing. What I saw in that waiting room would shatter every illusion. I found Mrs. Henderson in Ward 7, Room 14, Bed B. The journey through the hospital corridors had been like walking through a living textbook of everything wrong with my kingdom. Peeling paint on the walls, broken ceiling tiles held up with tape, nurses rushing past with the haunted look of people asked to do impossible things with insufficient resources. Her husband looked nothing like the proud soldier I'd imagined from her letters. The cancer had reduced him to bones and translucent skin, his body disappearing under hospital blankets that had seen too many washings, gaunt, yellow. The disease eating him from the inside, leaving only his eyes, still sharp, still defiant. Mrs. Henderson sat beside him, holding his hand with the fierce tenderness of someone who knows each touch might be the last. She was smaller than I'd imagined, more fragile, but her spine held that particular British steel that had held our nation together through wars and recessions. "Elizabeth?" Mrs. Henderson looked confused. "Do I know you?" Of course she didn't. No crown, no tiara, no ceremony. Just a woman in a borrowed coat. "You wrote me a letter about remembrance, about not being forgotten. I spent 20 minutes learning things that never made it into official dispatches. How her son Michael sang off-key in the shower every morning before deployment, driving his bunkmates mad with his enthusiasm for terrible pop songs. How he collected stamps from every country he visited, carefully cataloguing them in albums he sent home with detailed letters about the places and people he'd met. How he cried during Bambi, but never backed down from a fight, whether it was defending a younger soldier from bullies or standing up to officers who treated enlisted men poorly. He was going to be a teacher when he got home," Mrs. Henderson whispered, stroking her husband's forehead. "Said the army taught him about leadership, but he wanted to teach children about kindness. Funny thing for a soldier to say, isn't it? Not funny at all, I thought. Essential. He would write these letters," she continued, describing the local children wherever he was stationed. How they played games with bottle caps and string. How they smiled even when they had nothing. He said It reminded him why he was fighting. When did we stop seeing soldiers as someone's children who sang in the shower and dreamed of teaching kindness? I was leaving the ward, my heart heavy with stories that would never appear in any official history, when it happened without warning. The chest pains started as a flutter, almost like nervousness before a state dinner. Then they intensified, sharp and sudden, like someone driving a spike through my ribs. The familiar hospital corridor began to tilt and blur at the edges. My vision tunneled. The fluorescent lights became streaks of white fire. My knees buckled, and I felt myself falling in slow motion, the way people describe car accidents, every detail crystalline and inevitable. The last thing I remember was the surprised face of a young man in scrubs rushing toward me, and the terrible irony that I was about to become what I'd come here to observe, just another emergency patient. And then I was falling, right there, in front of everyone. When consciousness returned, I was staring up at those same harsh fluorescent lights, but now they were moving. Ceiling tiles sliding past like frames in an old film reel. Voices echoed around me, professional and urgent, the kind of controlled panic that comes with medical emergencies. BPs dropping slightly. Get me an IV line and call cardiology if Dr. Chen's still in the building. Ma'am? Ma'am, can you hear me? You're safe. You're in the hospital. The trolley stopped with a gentle bump, and a face appeared above me, young, serious, with tired eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses that had seen too many emergencies. A woman in scrubs, her dark hair escaping from a messy bun secured with what looked like a pencil, a stethoscope draped around her neck like medical jewellery. Her hands, when they touched my wrist to check my pulse, were rough from constant washing, but surprisingly gentle. I'm Nurse Sarah Mitchell. You're in St. Mary's emergency. You collapsed in the corridor. Can you tell me your name? This was the moment. The moment I could have ended the charade. If I told them who I was, within minutes this place would be swarming with protection officers, press administrators. Mrs. Henderson's private grief would become a photo opportunity. Elizabeth, I whispered. Elizabeth Windsor. Any family we can call Elizabeth. The question hit like a physical blow. My family consisted of private secretaries and protocol officers, people paid to care. No, I said, realizing it was absolute truth. No one. Something shifted in Sarah's eyes, not pity, recognition. Been there, she said quietly. Let's get you sorted first, yeah? Families, whoever shows up when you need them. For the next 4 hours, I was patient number 4751, bed 12 in Bay C. Just Sarah checking every 20 minutes, bringing lukewarm NHS tea, treating me like what I'd never been. Normal. But it was during her 11 p.m. rounds that she started talking. Sorry if I'm not chatty. Been a long day, long year, really. Sarah sat heavily in the plastic chair. Casualness that would horrify my staff, but felt natural here. Busy department? Sarah laughed bitterly. Busy? We're drowning. 3 nurses called in sick today. Probably couldn't face it anymore. Can't blame them. What she told me next would change everything I thought I knew. We're losing good people every day. Doctors emigrating to Australia, nurses leaving for supermarket jobs because the pay's better and you don't get spat on. Management keeps cutting costs, but we're not cutting costs. We're cutting people. She gestured toward the corridor where patients waited on trolleys. See Mrs. Patterson? 87. Broken hip. 6 hours on a trolley because we don't have staff to process admissions. I wanted to reveal who I was and promise change. But I just lay there, helpless. And the politicians come through for photo ops. Shake hands, make promises. But when was the last time one of them sat in this chair at 11 p.m. watching good people suffer because there's not enough money for basic dignity? What would you tell them? I asked quietly. Her answer would stay with me forever. I'd make them spend one shift here. One shift. Let them hold a man's hand while he dies alone. Let them explain to a mother why her child waits 3 days for surgery. I'd make them understand that every number on their spreadsheets is a human being. That's when she told me about her own family. My mum's got early dementia. 62 years old. Waiting list for NHS support is 18 months. Dad couldn't handle it, left 6 months ago. So I work double shifts to pay for private care, and I come home to an empty flat because my husband couldn't handle being married to a ghost. This girl, barely older than my granddaughter, carrying the weight of the world. You know what the worst part is? I still love this job, still believe in what we're doing. But sometimes, at 3 a.m., when I can't sleep, I wonder if the people making decisions about our lives ever think about us. Really think about us. Do they know we exist? She was asking if I knew she existed. Me, the person whose face was on her money. They should, I whispered. Yeah, well, should and do are different things, aren't they? The next morning brought a conversation that changed everything. Dr. Ahmed appeared, another tired guardian angel disguised as an overworked NHS employee. Your tests came back normal. Stress-related episode. But I'm concerned. You live alone? Any particular stresses? I worry about whether the people I'm responsible for are getting what they need. A management position? He nodded knowingly. You can't pour from an empty cup. Find someone to talk to, and spend time with the people you're responsible for. Really, with them. You'd be surprised what you learn. If only he knew I was learning right now. Sarah appeared as Dr. Ahmed finished, but something was wrong. Day shift, fresh scrubs, but her hands were shaking. Got the call an hour ago. Mum had a fall, broke her wrist. More importantly, she was confused. Didn't recognize the paramedics. Go to her, I said immediately. I can't. On shift until 2. Can't afford to lose another day's pay. She'll just have to wait. The casual acceptance of this impossible choice hit me like a blow. This is just how it is now. You make impossible choices and learn to live with them. As I was leaving, something made me turn back. Your mother. What's her name? Margaret Mitchell. Why? I memorized it. I hope she's all right. What I did next would change everything. I found Margaret in Bay 6, looking lost and frightened, wrist in a cast, eyes holding that confusion when your mind becomes a stranger. Margaret. I'm Elizabeth. I work with Sarah. The way her face lit up at Sarah's name broke my heart. I sat with Margaret for an hour. She told me the same 3 stories 4 times each. About Sarah's first day of school, about her husband leaving, about how proud she was, each time with the same wonder, the same love. She works so hard, Margaret said during a clear moment. I worry I'm just a burden now. This woman felt guilty for needing care, guilty for being human. Margaret, your daughter doesn't see you as a burden. She sees you as her mother, the person who taught her to care for others. When Sarah found me there, everything changed. Elizabeth, you came back? I wanted to make sure she was all right. Sarah, I need you to know something. Your work matters. What you do every day, it's essential. You're essential. And I promise you, someone sees what you're doing. Someone knows you exist." I pressed something into her hand, my personal card. "If you ever need anything at all, call this number." Sarah looked at the plain card. "Elizabeth, this is really kind, but promise me." Something in my voice made her nod. What happened next would change both our lives forever. I left that night and went straight to my private secretary's residence. Woke him at midnight with demands that made his face go white. "Mum, these budget changes. The Treasury will need justification. The justification is that it's right. By morning, emergency NHS funding. Support for healthcare workers with family responsibilities. Anonymous grants for financial hardship. Comprehensive review of waiting times." But the real changes were just beginning. 3 weeks later, I returned. Sarah was training a new nurse with the same gentle authority she'd shown me. Margaret was in a luxury care facility, mysterious benefactor covering costs. I established the Windsor Initiative, visiting hospitals as Elizabeth Windsor, concerned citizen. 12 hospitals this year, each time learning the same lesson. The greatest service isn't wearing a crown. It's seeing people, really seeing them, and remembering that every decision affects someone's mother, someone's child. But there's something else.